Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Enchanting Lawyer Podcast. This is a show where we interview the most inspiring entrepreneurs, attorneys, and business people who share their ideas and inspire us to do good things. And today, I'm actually very, very honored to have a special guest. I think this person is an innovator in the legal space, and I'm honored to have Kevin O'Keefe here today. Kevin is the CEO and founder of LexBlog, which empowers lawyers to increase their visibility and accelerate business relationship online. With LexBlog's help, legal professionals use their subject matter expertise to drive powerful business development through blogging and social media. Prior to starting LexBlog, Kevin was an attorney for 17 years and used the internet to grow his own practice. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jacob. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. And Kevin, I introduced you briefly, but why don't you share with our listeners a bit, where you started and what led you to start your first technology company. And I think that company was actually acquired by lawyers.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, LexisNexis, which owned lawyers.com.
Mm-hmm.
But, basically, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little kid. And I wanted to be a lawyer because I thought that if you did good things, what a great way to earn a living, and that it was a very honorable profession. So when I started my own law firm after breaking off from another firm, this was back in rural Wisconsin, I didn't have the financial resources to bring in more cases. I was doing plaintiff's trial work, and I had to borrow almost $500,000 to buy my files out, the associated time and out-of-pocket expenses. And so I knew the young team that I took with me were very capable at working up cases to get them to trial if need be, to settle them or go to trial. And I knew we could get very good results. And so I wanted to build our practice based on our reputation, that we were good lawyers, we cared, and that we could do a very good job for people. But how do you convey that? Well, then I just stumbled into the internet by dumb luck. I'm not a technologist, and I started answering questions on AOL,
right.
And against all my better judgment from an ethics standpoint. But I just decided that if a lawyer would get in trouble for helping people, then so be it. I looked at it like a radio show.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were thousands of people answering questions on areas that I knew something about, whether it was personal injury, medical malpractice, workers' comp, plaintiff's employment. And I answered, it basically became 4 to 7 questions each morning. My secretary would come in and key in the answers. And then I got an intern from the university, and she archived the Q&As and put them on the internet, something that came to be known as a website. And so we were creating more content than you could shake a stick at. And we created 4 listservs, one in personal injury, one in medical malpractice, one in plaintiff's employment, and I think the other must have been workers' comp. And they were extremely busy. They had lawyers answering people's questions, and we might have been doing 30 or 40 pieces a day on each of those listservs. So you can imagine the amount of content that we're creating in a tiny little law firm in Wisconsin. So at the end of 1998, after a couple of years of this, realized came Prairie Law, and Prairie Law moved from Wisconsin to Seattle for the financial and human capital. And that was sold to lawyers.com so that they would have articles, ask a lawyer, listservs, chats, all that type of stuff. But the focus was the more people that you would help, the more work you would get, because the notoriety would build. And people would pass those answers around because they came from the heart. These weren't just stock answers, but at the same time, they were only 2-3 paragraphs long. And you build an intimate relationship of trust with people. So for the few people that were using the internet in Wisconsin that did find me, they felt like they knew me at the time they approached me. So I just thought it was a no-brainer to use the internet that way going forward for lawyers. That's why I left the practice.
And Kevin, it's interesting when I'm listening to what you're saying. It's you pretty much embrace the notion that lawyers that are hoarding information, that are keeping it inside the firm, in exchange for a fee, are actually making a mistake, because the more information you give out, the more you share, the more you get. And even today, 2015, lawyers are still not doing that. What do you think is that?
I don't know. A lot of it is just short-sighted. I think, for me,
Mm-hmm.
how did I start to pick up certain philosophies? I went to Barnes & Noble and I went to the business section because there was no Barnes & Noble for a long time in my hometown. And when it came, I started reading the business books and they just opened my mind that there was a different way of looking at the world, that I didn't look at the world as a, lawyer through age, 40.
Mm-hmm.
So you just start to look at the world differently. But, take it outside the law. Just go to Mayo Clinic.
Yep.
The Mayo Clinic has a social media initiative underway that's been underway for about 3 years. When we had the issues of the, healthcare institutions were struggling, their CEO came out and said, we're going to start a social media initiative. And the doctors and the other administrators thought he was nuts.
Mm-hmm.
In-house counsel thought he was nuts because they weren't using social media. But you look at what they've done today, they give it all away. Now, nobody's going to go and do brain surgery. They get all the information there. Nobody's going to, go prescribe medication. They can't. But they give it all away. They're giving everything away. And it basically empowers people. It builds trust. People also are gravitated to those people that care enough to give it away, to share, to give it themselves. If a lawyer was asked to go to their town square or to their arena and be the only lawyer in town and talk about a particular subject and then take questions from the audience, of course they would go, well, this is better than that. So, who knows? But the more you give, the more you'll get. And it's not just a reverse karma thing. It's building intimate relationships of trust with people and then shining out like a star as a lawyer.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite books is Utility. It's written by Jay Baer. I'm sure you heard of him. And he wasn't the guest on the show, and he basically says that you whatever you do, you have to become a utility, for no reason but to give away good information and become so useful that people will come to you because they believe in what you do. And for us attorneys, we have the tools to do that, but yet we still charge for everything, and we still create that image that we are. It's not about people; it's about profits. And I think it's time to change that.
Yeah, and you could look at it from the other way. This is a way to save money because the time it takes to blog is a fraction of the cost of having to go out and to buy marketing or buy advertising. Lawyers might be spending peanuts to come up with a very good blog, figure out how to do it, those type of things. Make sure it's search engine optimized. That's peanuts compared to what they'd be spending in advertising or other forms of marketing.
Absolutely. And then, Kevin, before we talk about Lex blog, and I have a lot of interesting questions that I'm curious to know. I have two important questions to ask you. First, I wanted to know your opinion. What do you think lawyers and law students need to know today about social media?
It's a good question. I think it's hard to answer that until the lawyer or the law student knows what they want to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? Who do you want to do it for? But I don't really view social media as anything different than anything that's been going on for forever. I mean, understand that this term social media wasn't around when I started LexBlog.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't around when I was using the internet on AOL. Nobody roped me in with some term that you needed to understand. I just was a person. It's just being yourself. Is social media being at a golf course and sharing a piece of news with somebody? Yeah. Is it taking somebody to a baseball game and telling them about something that you read someplace? Yeah. Now, nobody would say that's social media, but everything is social media. It's a term of art that got coined by the communications profession when they needed to hang on to something before their companies and their careers went away.
I see it more of, I think you mentioned it as well, building relationships. It's all about, right now we have the option to do this online because we can reach more people. But in the old days, I guess, I've only been practicing for about 11 years, so, I came with the internet. But probably, 20 years ago, you had to build a relationship offline. You meet people, you give them value. It's still true today, right? When you engage online.
Yeah, I started practicing 33 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There were no computers in any law offices, or there was no internet. I didn't even hear the word internet until 1996, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd already been practicing for 13 years at that point in time. And what you did, in those days, was you worked really, really hard, and you just got to know people, and that was about it. If you were in the good fortune to knock on doors and get a job at a firm that had some work, and to get work from those clients, which I did. That's how I got a job. I just knocked on doors.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, then I made sure that I visited those clients. I just had fun with them. They were my friends. The people in town, I became friends with them. It's just who I was, and they referred work to you over time. It's all it is. It's just a different way of being out there doing stuff. It all depends when you talk about social media versus, let's say, social networking, and maybe those terms are a little bit different. But it's very easy to reach people. The other thing it is, I think that lawyers should not lose sight of. You can be a rock star in a niche, whether it's locally, statewide, or nationally, and people do not realize that. So, and you could even pick. And to think about it, Jacob, I could go right down the states and say, okay, I want to look at this network of blogs and see who's really good in what states, and look at my state and they don't have one. Oh my God, I can earn millions of dollars by building expertise in that area as I continue to do the type of work I'm doing and begin to blog on that issue. So look at it that way, from the standpoint of not just relationships, but reputation building.
And
reaching up those people.
It's funny that you mentioned rockstar, because I think that this is one of the we are in a time where lawyers can actually scale so much. And I look at my own practice. I mean, in 11 years, I was able to dominate immigration law in my space. We have the largest Facebook page in the world for any law firm, and people perceive us as experts. I mean, and hopefully we do good work, and I believe that we do. But it's more than that, because now people feel that we are above these other people, and it's just because of the use of social media and giving back and answering questions and just being as a resource. And I wanted to quote something that you mentioned, and I read that you said that the price of engaging in social media goes far beyond the return on investment that can be calculated. The price failing to do so is irrelevance, and the world may never know who you are and what you can do. And this is, for lawyers, this is a death blow, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to do things now, and I think, and that's where you have the biggest, chasm as far as trying to figure out how to get lawyers to do this, and it's really to inspire them. It's one thing to beat up on people and say, "Boy, you should understand this stuff," because you just don't. And in my community of 50, 60,000 people, we may have had 150 lawyers. There were, I don't know how many of them really enjoyed going out and spending time with people and whatnot. It may not have been 30 of them. And so, we can't go out and beat on the other people and say, boy, you guys should get this, and just enjoy life and have fun with your clients and that type of stuff. Because the minute I tell people that, on the outside, they say, well, Kevin, that's you. And I'm thinking, well, understand how scary it is for me. And they go, well, no, it doesn't appear scary to you. So for the other lawyer, for those other lawyers, it's really to inspire them to in my opinion, at least, it's what would it be like to put your kids through college? What would that feel like? What would it feel like for you and your husband to go on vacation once a year, a really nice place, and not worry about what it costs? What would it feel like to have somebody, invite you to speak at a conference and ask, you and your wife to come and stay on their dime, and they would fly you there? How would that feel? And how special would that feel? And then you and your spouse could know that you never need to worry about where revenue is going to come from for the next 25 years as a practicing lawyer, because you developed a reputation and relationships that allowed you to have that income stream. You'd be the one contributing to the church. You would be the one contributing back to your university, just as a way of normal course of events. How exciting would that be? What would that feel like? Could you make the decision that you could do that? And here's how you could do that. If you can do that, I think that's what's really, important. So that's what I tell lawyers today: is to decide, make that decision, draw that line in the sand, get out of the line of sheep, and decide to do something different, and then we'll figure out a way to actually make it happen. So my job, or LexBlog's job, is to inspire people to do those things that inspire them. It's not to do these other things.
So that was actually a next question I wanted to ask you. And you answered in a way a few future reasons why lawyers should be using social media or building relationship online today. And you mentioned a few of those now. Building reputation, becoming the go-to person. Why is it so important to start doing it now for building your practice in the future?
Well, it all depends what you want. I think for lawyers that are getting to be in their 30s that are in larger firms, if you haven't carved out a book of business, you're going to be a liability to the firm.
Right.
They're going to want to get rid of you, because if they don't get rid of you by a certain age, you're going to be an age discrimination claim waiting to happen. And that sounds absolutely awful, but it's absolutely true. If I can find lawyers and pay them $135 or $150 to do almost as much as what you're capable of doing, and you want $500,000 or $600,000, why would I keep you? It just doesn't. It does. The pressure on profitability is so great. You become a cog in the system. There's all so very real financial concerns. Also, there's a lot of firms that merge, and they take the rainmakers and they might leave other people behind. So you have all those issues that you need to worry about, and then on the softer side, but just the real side, you need to feel good about what you're doing. I mean, there's I don't know what the percentage of lawyers that suffer from depression is, but it's very high. It's the highest incidence of depression of any profession. And so, and the reason is that it's stressful. You're suffering. My God, you're sitting in an office or a cube and you're doing deposition summaries, or you're doing litigation, because you're not in court trying cases like lawyers in smaller firms. Or if you're doing transactional work, you're just reviewing documents and changing documents all the time. You don't feel like you're doing anything. You're not out there. But what happens if the largest airline in the country comes in and becomes a client because you blogged?
Right.
Now that's interesting. Or what happens if you're speaking at the Kentucky Derby within 1 year of when you started the Equine Law blog? That's interesting. Or you decided that you like doing business dissolution work, and now you get 100% of your work, from relationships you built from blogging, and you're charging a pretty high rate in downtown Manhattan. That's cool. When I hear these people's stories, it gives me goosebumps. So you think on the softer side too.
So let's talk about LexBlog. You mentioned some of the beautiful stories that you hear from attorneys. Tell me how you started it, why you started it, and how LexBlog empowers attorneys to build a relationship online.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't ginned up to start a blogging company. I had started a nonprofit that was going to allow consumers to ask questions of lawyers through technology I had gotten from a local company, and that ran into a roadblock on the technology side. And so I decided, rather than go back into the practice of law, I wanted to share with lawyers how they should use the internet, because I saw all the cockamamie things that they were doing. And I would say the cockamamie things they're doing today are 10 times worse than the cockamamie things they were doing back in 2003 when I started looking to put stuff online. So I looked at, what should I use? A website, email newsletter, listservs, message boards, you name it. I had done all these things. And I bumped into a little tiny article in Business 2.0 about a company called TypePad that was going to have 10,000 subscribers in 90 days. And I thought that was fascinating because they were paying. And so it looked like AOL-like uptake. And so I went to see what it was. Turned out to be a vehicle where you could write stuff and put it on the internet. And that turned out to be a blog. I didn't know what the heck it was. And so I put some pieces up and people contacted me from across the country, small firms, large firms, asking me questions on what I was writing on, and then also asking me questions on blogging. And then somebody invited me to come down and speak in Northern California, San Francisco, and they introduced me as the national leader for blogs for lawyers, which I thought was really funny. And, and then people came up and said, "Could you help me?" And I'm thinking, help you with what? And then I went back to a friend of mine's place in Silicon Valley. I was staying on his futon because I wanted to preserve the nest egg of money that I had, which wasn't enough to last that long. And I said, "Can I do blogs for lawyers?" And he thought it was really kind of funny. And he's a legal technologist himself. He's done very well. And I said, "No." I said, I said, "I'm really afraid that people can see my blog." And I really was. I thought it looked silly. And I really didn't know what I was doing. And as somebody that was a professional, I didn't want people to come and see me if I really didn't know what I was doing professionally. Mm-hmm. So I bulleted out a list, literally just took a pencil and a piece of paper and said, what would I want? Okay, one, I don't know what I'm doing. I need some type of strategy. Next, I need great design. Next, I need great development. I need it to be hosted. I need it to be search engine optimized. I need some type of coaching. I don't know what I need.
Yeah.
There's like 7 things, ongoing support.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, that's what it needs. And then a friend of his was playing with whether we could put designs on these things while we were up in San Francisco, and it turns out you could. And he agreed to do the designs, and that was it. And the next, within about, I don't know, X number of weeks, we threw a LexBlog site up, listed these things off, and I blogged. And the more I blogged, the more people that came. And I couldn't keep up with the volume of people that were contacting us to help them in the beginning. So LexBlog would have been a lot bigger if I probably would have taken on investors at the time from a business development standpoint, or also a direct development. I just made some decisions that I did not want to accelerate the rate of growth of blogging because it would have brought out more people in competition back then. Because to me, it was so patently obvious that this worked. The first time that I went over, before I went down to San Francisco into the bookstore, there were only 2 books on blogging. One was written by Biz Stone, the founder of, was involved with Blogger, with Ev, and Twitter. There was another one, though, that was a little bit more meaningful for me, and that was Rebecca Blood, called the Weblog Handbook. Yeah. And Rebecca talked about blogs for plumbers, and that if you were doing work around your house, handiwork, and you followed this person's blog, and you came downstairs, you had inch water in the floor one morning, who would you call? It was obvious. And I used to call us plumbers in law school. I said, let's not get carried away from ourselves. We're going to bill about $20 more an hour than plumbers. So as soon as I'm reading this, I realized these would be very, very, very big. And so that's how LexBlog started. And then it was based on people who say, how do I know it will work? And I say, you don't, but you will have to have faith, because at the end of a year, if it's not the greatest thing in the world you've ever made an investment in, you just give me a call and I'll refund whatever sum of money you think is fair, period. But it won't happen. So I still do it today. And so what we're doing right now in the company is, rather than continuing to increase the prices, we're going to democratize blogging for the American lawyer. So we're going to bring it back down in price, and we'll bring those lawyers on a network where they can blog among themselves. They'll have their own site, but they'll grow their influence by hanging around with more influential people. And see, that's where the internet's really headed. Lawyers don't understand that. Lawyers don't understand that through machine learning, if they give it themselves and they're hanging around with other influential lawyers, they will be looked at as more influential. Mm-hmm. So the content that they go to share, wherever they go to share it, is going to do better, and more people are going to share it. So sorry to get carried away.
No. It's I can see the passion, and LexBlog is a beautiful product. When did you start it? What year?
2003. 2003.
Wow. I was just I'm going to have a conversation with Tim Stanley later today, and they started Justia. And I started my first blog in late 2005. It was just the beginning of I think legal blogging, as you describe it.
Ask,
And
ask, ask Tim about LexBlog.
what is it?
Ask Tim about LexBlog.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I know you guys know each other, and we'll be, But I can tell you that my connection with Tim and Stacy back in the early days was really the beginning and the reason why I was able to succeed in my legal career, because they gave me the push to get the information out there to clients, and I was looking for a way to do this. It was before Facebook, so and I think that
they're good. They're great people. They were the first people that I met back in '99 or '98, traveling out to California, and I had been communicating with Stacy as she was building the taxonomy. Tim was doing the technology, and Tim and I are close friends.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mentioned. And just for our listeners, those who Tim and Stacy are the original founders of FindLaw, where it was real FindLaw, when it was free law, and not what it is today. So I'm not going to say more about that, but. So we'll talk to him also about websites and other stuff. But Kevin, I know you have to go. I just wanted to ask you one last question. You've been working a lot with law schools and law students, and I really admire that, because I do the same. I teach at some legal incubators. I spoke at a conference in San Diego a few months ago, and law students are really delusional as to what is out there. And in a few sentences, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're going to be doing in Michigan? And what do you think law students should be doing now as they graduate to succeed in law?
Yeah, I'm going back to Michigan State for the second. I'll be back there the second time, and I've done some programs online for them too. I told the team this morning I do it for my sins, and they thought that was kind of funny. They thought I was serious. They thought it was a penance or something. No, the interesting thing about law students, they inspire me. Now, I'm seeing a select group of law students, because when I show up, I'm getting the people that are excited, that want to learn and talk and engage. Mm-hmm. So, I've seen them at many schools across the country. I get totally jazzed. So, I hear all this, woe is me. I'm not sure I can get a job as a lawyer. My student loans are so high. I'm inside a law firm and life's not as good. And yet I see these eyes look back at me, and they're totally inspired. They want to be a lawyer. They want to be a lawyer for the right reasons. And it's all over the board in the type of work that they want to do. It's not, legal services work or something. They can be working in major law firms mm-hmm. and whatnot. And what are the opportunities is what they want to know. They want to learn. And so, what I want the law students to know is that they can build relationships and they can build a reputation while they're in law school, unlike you could ever do so before. Mm-hmm. And when you isolate those students that have done so, that have gotten jobs, there's a student at Michigan State that's headed down to Australia right now on an internship. There's a student that grad from Michigan State a year plus ago, that's working at a leading firm in Detroit. Another one, got a clerkship in London off of Twitter. Now, they had a blog, they were blogging, they had other things that gave them gravitas and their presence. There was another student that's going to come out, and all of a sudden she's telling me how she's going to work in the food industry outside Wenatchee. And I'm going, Wenatchee, Washington? Tiny town, over the mountain from here. Well, she already developed a national reputation. She was already invited to the Bay Area, to a conference. Think about that. When I was in law school, I hardly had any reputation outside the classroom, if not row in the classroom. And it wasn't necessarily a great reputation. These kids are developing reputations that are national in nature and regional. And so, I get a little bit carried away here, but just to explain, in St. Thomas in Minnesota, there was a young woman from, I think it was Fargo. Might have been a different city in North Dakota, but I asked her, I said, would you consider going back there? And she goes, I might. And I said, well, you're 1L. How would you like to be the most famous lawyer in Fargo among the community
Mm-hmm.
and among lawyers, maybe by the time you're between your second and third year law student. She's going, yeah, but how? And we said, well, how about you start to highlight, certain local businesses on Facebook. You start to cover certain local legal news on a blog, called Fargo Legal News, something like that. Or maybe it's at Facebook, who knows. You create a Twitter list of executives in Fargo. The Chamber of Commerce had the CEO and the officers at the largest healthcare institutions, the other major employers. So they all know you because you give a little favor or you retweet their stuff. Everybody knows you. So by the time you're third year law student, you'll get to work there because some law firms aren't going to want other law firms to get you. And you'll be known in the community. You'll be known among the people in the community. I mean, think about that. You'd be known by the executives at the healthcare institutions. You'd be known at the Chamber of Commerce. You'd be known at the Chamber of Commerce Board. You'd be known by the leaders in the law firms. You'd be known by consumers and small business people in the community. Never, ever before could you do that. But now somebody has to teach a law student how to do that and to do it in an inspiring way where they think it's possible. What I'm starting to realize is me just telling people that stuff or blogging it isn't enough. You actually have to go and teach it,
right?
Because the understandably the career development offices have never used this stuff in ways that maybe you have or I have, and so it's hard to just pick it up second nature. And the law professors certainly haven't. And then you have Michigan State certainly does not have this going on. But you have some law schools which are not really open to this for fear that they need to protect the students or for fear that they don't know it and they don't want to tell people that they don't know it. So I laud Michigan State for what they're doing.
Yeah, that was my impression too, Kevin. Whenever I go to these seminars and participate in workshops, a lot of these law professors, they're not out there, so they're afraid of what is out there, and they're afraid that they don't know, and so it's easier to go back and say, well, this is what you should be doing, and not more than that. And that's why I like what you're saying too. And you had a controversial article you wrote for law students, giving them tips and encouraging them that this is the best time to be in law school because we have social media, we have all these tools to build relationship before we graduate. So yeah, I think this is beautiful.
That post is probably still the most popular post I've ever written. It might be 5 years old, but it was my point was, hey, it was really hard to get a job in a small town in Wisconsin. There were no jobs, I was told by the firms. I was told to go to other communities, and all I had was Martha Hubble, and all I had was overcoming my fear for a couple hours, and I literally knocked on doors and I waited to see the lead partner in the firm. And then if I bugged them enough, I was hoping that somebody would offer me a job because
right.
$1,000 a month or $1,500 a month wasn't that expensive to pay me. And so finally somebody did, and they figured out how to get me some work. Okay, so today, all I'm saying is it can be equally as scary. Mm-hmm. It could be less jobs, I understand that. But you can make up that difference by using the internet to build a name for yourself. So maybe there's more people that you will get the opportunity to meet. I don't know.
I love that, and I think we can conclude this interview with saying that now more than ever the future of law is so bright with all the tools and technology we have. All you have to do is just open your eyes and use it. Just use it, right? And you'll be successful. Kevin, I really appreciate the time. lexblog.com is where you can find all the tools, and I encourage our listeners to, if you don't have a blog yet, check out lexblog.com. Kevin, if you want to share your Twitter handle for people who want to follow you.
It's just Kevin O'Keefe.
At Kevin O'Keefe, and I know you've been giving me some hard time online because I don't use my name. I use the at Visa Lawyer blog, but I built so many fans on Twitter. I'm just afraid to I'm afraid to change it, but maybe one of these days. Kevin, it was a true pleasure, and good luck in Michigan, and I look forward to stay connected with you online. And
thank you.
A pleasure. And to you listeners, if you have any questions and follow up on what you heard today, email me, jacob@enchantinglawyer.com. And we look forward to seeing you at our next episode. Have a blessed day.